Hi, this is Aaron from Inside the Skev. I hope you enjoy this next episode. If you want to listen live, tune in Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. to WCGO. That's 95.9 FM, 1590 AM, or WCGOradio.com. Facebook Live at WCGO's page and Inside the Skev. To learn more about this great town and what I do, go to Schacter-Evanston.com, and you could always contact me at aaron@Schacter-Evanston.com. Now sit back and listen to this one message from one of our supporters, and we'll start the show.
Recognized as the third largest Holocaust museum in the world, Illinois Holocaust Museum inspires people of all ages to take a stand against anti-Semitism, hatred, prejudice, and indifference. An award-winning and world-class attraction, the museum has a fantastic slate of engaging virtual programs, including discussions on social justice topics, film screenings with talkbacks, lunch and learn sessions with scholars, authors, and experts, and more. There's truly something for everyone. Tickets for virtual public tours of the blockbuster exhibit Notorious R.B.G., The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, are available now through February 20th. And speaking of inspiring pop culture icons, on January 21st, you and your friends have the opportunity to test your pop culture knowledge during the virtual event Take a Stand Trivia, hosted by the museum's Young Professional Committee. Thanks to Let Us Entertain You, this event can be transformed into a dinner party with food and cocktail kits available for curbside pickup in the city and suburbs. Visit ilholocaustmuseum.org for more information.
Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. And today I have another library episode for you because I think that these libraries are so important for our community and they are vital for us to come back from what we've been going through in the pandemic. So today I have Jill Schacter, and Jill is the Marketing Communications Coordinator for the Evanston Public Library. She also hosts The Checkout, which is a podcast of the Evanston Public Library. And she interviews some really interesting people. We've had some of the same people on too, but it is a great podcast that you guys should all check out. She also reaches everyone through e-newsletters, social media, press relations, and storytelling and content development, and works to inform the community about the many valuable, life-changing programs and services that are available through the Evanston Public Library to enhance literacy of all kinds throughout our diverse community. So, Jill, I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. And, you know, I noticed the checkout when it came out and I'm like, hey, but I'm like thinking to myself, and I said the same thing when It's Skokie had the podcast, but the truth is, and we were talking about this before we came on, there are so many interesting people in this community that you can never run out of great stories to share. And it is such a great resource. So you must really enjoy it, don't you?
I do. It's really one of my favorite things that I do. It's such a pleasure. And it's really true. I have a list a mile long of potential guests for the show. And I make sure to ask every guest, who else should we have on? Who else should we have on? And everybody has a new list, and everybody has a list that's different from the other list. And it will never end.
You really met some interesting people through that too, right? Isn't it such a great connector?
It is. It's a wonderful connector, and it's a great way to engage with the community and to give people a voice in the community and to make new connections for people.
It certainly is. But you do a lot at the library. Can you tell us a little bit about, what's your background in being in the library and how did you get there?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting path. I had a really interesting early career. I worked at an audio publisher out in Niles, Illinois called Nightingale Conant, and I landed that job just after college. And right there by the train tracks at Toohey and Lehigh was this publishing company. And when I started there in 1984, when I was just out of college, there were about 80 people in the company. And by the time I left that company, 10 years later, but then I freelanced for them for another 5. There were over 200 people in this company putting very famous authors on tape, like people like Deepak Chopra and, Wayne Dyer and Tom Peters, and they'd be coming to our facility out there in Niles. It used to be, now it's a storage facility. It's a big building. Now it's a storage place. So it was really a huge building. And we had everything there. We had a recording studio, an art department, shipping. We did it all there, packaging, printing. And so I got a real taste. I worked on the editorial side there. It was a direct marketing company. So we sold these cassettes in the mail. It was a real early leader in audio publishing. Like in the 60s, they had a gold record for Earl Nightingale's recording of The Strangest Secret, which is you become what you think about. That's the strangest secret. Sort of like today's book, The Secret, if you know of that book. And I really got a lot of experience. I worked on the editorial side. I did audio production. I did product development.
You got to meet a lot of these people that came through.
I mean, yeah, I met them. I met them all. And we put Lee Iacocca on tape. He had a really big business book. This was when business books were kind of new, these celebrity business books. Yeah. And I went to New York and we recorded Lee Iacocca, and we did original audio. So actually this wasn't just people reading from their book. We crafted audio. Like maybe I would interview someone for 2 days in a studio and then take myself out. Myself would be edited out and you'd be left with this seamless piece. And it was a really, it was a really interesting time in my career. And then I also
put your voice in. You have such a great voice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Sometimes my voice was in. It kind of depended, but usually not. It was about these authors. And then I wrote direct mail for them. We were mailing 2 million pieces a month.
The post office must have liked you.
Yeah, they liked us. And all you needed was about a 3% response, and that was our business. And it was really it was very interesting. And then I took and now I freelanced for a while, and then I took some years off to raise my kids. And while I was still not working or being a mom and raising my kids, I started working for the Mighty Twig, the experimental library that came around after the South Branch was closed. And I was a real integral member of that team and sort of was acting like a pretend librarian, one of the, many volunteers who worked there and sustained that place. And in the process, then I served on their board. And then in the process, when Karen Danzik-Lyons became the director of Evanston Public Library, she came to a board meeting at my house. And then later she was like, I think we're going to work together someday. And, she asked me out for coffee a couple of times. And when I was ready to go back to work, I applied for a job. A job came up at the Evanston Public Library that I feel I was quite well suited for.
Oh, for sure. And by the way, how many other communities do you know where people create their own private library when the branch is closed? I mean, Evanston is fanatic about its libraries.
Yeah, they really are. And Evanston in general is just such an activist community. And people don't sit back if they want to see something, a lot of times they will make it happen. It's such a caring community. They're just not apathetic.
No, definitely not. The opposite.
Yeah, the opposite.
Yeah.
Ravenous for change and growth.
Yes, and we'll talk more about that later on in the episode. But I want to know, what is new right now at the library with what's going on?
Yeah, well, what isn't new at the library? Because, everything is different now. Everything's different. Everything's changed. We had to really pivot quickly. One thing that is really unique about libraries, and I kind of learned this being on the inside of a library. I've always been a huge library user. So before I even came to work at the library, I was probably in there twice a week, and I just bring home more books than I could ever possibly read. I just liked, being surrounded by them. But what I didn't realize is what an organism a library is, and how organic is its functioning, and how it sort of responds to the environment. And really always, if you're a good library, you have to really be in touch with what your community needs and try and meet those needs. That's what we're here for. So, during the pandemic, we continue to kind of really think about what does our community need. We know that unemployment is up in Evanston. Yeah. And so one of the things that we've just initiated we got a very large grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, an IMLS grant. And we've launched some job search tech kits. And these are, you can check out a computer, a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then a curated information that our librarians have put together to help you with your job search.
That's amazing. So it tells you like how to get a resume going, or how to get on LinkedIn or things like that.
All kinds of details about what would help you with your job search, because, you know, it might be hard for some of us to imagine or believe, but there are probably thousands of people in Evanston who don't have access to computers, Wi-Fi, and, you know, they really depend on us. And,
well, what's so interesting about Evanston is you have, I took a sociology class, and actually it was at Elkton during college with summer school. And we were talking about different communities and how, like Evanston is a microcosm of the larger Chicagoland area, where you have vast differences in wealth. You have many different populations of people from different ethnic backgrounds, capabilities, whatever it may be. So you may have multi-million-dollar homes on the lake, but then you do have people who are just struggling to get by. And the library needs to encompass every person who lives in the town, right?
We really do. It's one of our, it's one of our great opportunities, and it's also one of our big challenges, because we really feel a great responsibility to be there for everybody. You know, I didn't go to library school. That's not my background. I have a background in journalism, but librarians and people who are doing this work, they're such humble, smart public servants. You know, they really care about serving the people who come in the doors and the people who don't come in the doors as well.
Yeah, especially during these times, and learning how to pivot for being able to help people throughout the area without them having to come into the building. And that's one of the great things I think about, having the podcast where people can listen to the checkout and learn about people, because then that's another resource to learn about your community.
Yes, it is. Another thing I want to mention about what's new at the library, a very important service that we launched this year in partnership with the City of Evanston, Amita Health, and the Evanston Community Foundation, is the Evanston Care Network. And this is a one-stop, it's at evanstoncarenetwork.org. And it's a one-stop shop for people who need food, childcare, housing, mental health care, just whatever you might need. The Evanston Care Network is there, and it has backup help from 311 and from.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more just after the break.
That sounds great.
And give everyone the website. So everyone stick around. We got a lot more coming. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Aaron Masliansky, longtime Skokie and Evanston resident, host of Inside the Skev, and local real estate expert. As a community connector and realtor with Dreamtown Realty in downtown Evanston, I know firsthand what makes the Skev such an amazing place to live. When I'm helping my clients buy and sell properties inside of the Skev or out, I'm doing it with the best technology and support team behind me at Dreamtown. During the pandemic, I've been able to help my clients seamlessly stay on track with their home search, from immersive 3D Matterport tours, professional photos, to virtual open houses. My clients can find their homes safely and comfortably, and even from their couch. When you're ready to make a move, know that I'll be here to help. You can always find out more about me at skevinston.com/real estate. Again, that's skevinston.com/real estate, or email me at aaron@skevinston.com.
Moving day is a happy day, but how can you be sure all of your stuff will get to the new place in the same condition they left the old place? Upgrade your experience to First Class Moving and Storage. You'll get a team of professionals who treat all of your belongings with care and have the right tools to make the job go smoothly. They even offer a full packing service. Upgrade to First Class Moving and Storage. They're local and independently owned. For more info, visit the website at firstclassmovers.com. That's the number 1, stclassmovers.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the Skev. I'm here today with Jill Schacter, the Marketing Communications Coordinator for the Evanston Public Library. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about how the library has responded to the pandemic. And Jill, you were talking about how Amita Health has set up a partnership with the library where, if you need food or anything like that, there's things that you can connect through the library. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a partnership between the City of Evanston, the Evanston Public Library, Amita Health, and the Evanston Community Foundation. It's called the Evanston Care Network, and you reach it at evanstoncarenetwork.org. And it's sort of a one-stop shop for people in need, whether that need is food, shelter, childcare, mental health care, physical health care, legal care. It's one place you can go and you can put in what your need is into this website, but then there's backup help from librarians or from the 311 service. And it's to make one place people can go when they're in need. And this service was started in the spring. And so far there have been about 9,000, or maybe it's more now, 9,000 searches conducted.
Wow. I think that is an excellent example of how when people think of the library, you think books. Like that, you go get books, it's quiet. It's not the library anymore. The library is a place that is a community center. And here, this is like totally out of the regular wheelhouse of what you'd think of a library, which I think is quite amazing. And, the library has adjusted a lot in order to be able to meet those needs. But what are you expecting in 2021 as we start this new year and hopefully vaccinations start to come out a lot? And people are more free to be able to go into places. How do you expect things to change on your end?
Well, some of the things that we have done to adjust for COVID is we've made it a lot easier for people to get a library card. Thousands of people since, at first our doors closed and we were still at work, but people couldn't get into the library until the summer. And we made it a lot easier for people to get a library card, actually. And thousands of people got a new library card. And this introduced many, many people to the digital library, which is huge. There are so many resources that are available through our digital library, which is available 24/7. And so, that's everything from books, audiobooks, streaming movies, and TV. So there's going to be a lot greater awareness of our digital library. And I believe that checkouts, we're putting together all our stats now for the end of the year, but I think checkouts in all formats have really increased, dramatically, and particularly in the digital sector. Of course, we had to convert all of our programs to virtual programs. And we just had to do that really, really fast. And I'm sure that we have learned so much, and that learning will continue. And who knows, what will arise out of that. I wanted to mention one really interesting service I think we're providing. We know parents of school-age children really have a lot on their plates. And so some of the,
yes, we do.
Yeah, that's an understatement, right?
Yeah.
And so, we have some sort of creative, very creative programming that all these story times have been put. There's, scores of them now on our YouTube channel, the kinds of things that you could bring your child to at the library, we've put up and adapted for YouTube. We have microwave cooking classes where a kid can just using simple ingredients, make a little something in the microwave, hopefully without too much parental attention if it's for the right age group. And yeah, we even have, I kind of love this, a story time for parents after their kids go to bed. We'll read you something with some interesting information, and you can do,
That's really nice. It's a way to calm down,
Exactly. So, yeah, and of course we had to move to curbside pickup for a while, which we're not doing now, but we had to just really pivot so quickly. We also found we did more frequent communications with our community and found that they really depended on us for information, even about COVID and vaccination. These things get a lot of...
They're important. But, in 2020, there was more than just COVID that the library itself had changes. The new Robert Crown Center opened up, which is a beautiful space, and reorganized some different things with the Central Street Library and the South Branch. So
yes,
how has the community responded to those changes? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so those were big changes. So the beautiful Robert Crown branch opened, and then 2 weeks later, everything got shut down. So that time by COVID. But we reopened in the summer, and there's never been a library that in that area of town. So of course we're seeing many new faces and many new families. And we have a fully bilingual staff at the Robert Crown, Spanish English speaking staff. And I think that is just so appreciated by our community. During when the CARES Act was passed and people could apply for aid, we were helping people in the library using our computers in their own language to apply for really important aid that they needed to help their families at that time. So this is some of what we can do when we have a bilingual staff. It has this beautiful computer bar that faces these tall windows facing a reading garden. I mean, it's really beautiful. Then we closed 2 branches, and of course that's a huge deal. That doesn't make anybody really happy to close library branches. And to be honest, we've had a mixed reaction, but I'd say that it was pretty 50-50 mixed reaction. We all love our libraries. We do. We all love to have a library, and we all love to have one close by. Today, we're really the focus of the library is full stop, how to provide services equitably, and really focusing on who, where, and how we serve, and in particular, how we serve those we may not have served so well in the past. And
that's something that I definitely want to get to after the break and talk about how you've reached out to different communities within the community, and certainly how the library has responded after the George Floyd and the protests of this past summer. So we'll be right back after this.
Mortgage rates have reached record lows recently. If you see homeownership in your future, the future is now. Think of Beth Lewis at Cross Country Mortgage as your personal mortgage shopper. She'll sort through racks and racks of home financing options until she finds exactly the right style and fit for you. She'll get you pre-approved to give you an advantage over other buyers, and she'll close your loan quickly with a highly efficient process driven by advanced mortgage technology. So far in 2020, Beth has come through for over 680 individuals and families who needed home financing. Beth will be here for you too, because helping people get mortgages is what she does best. Visit BethLewisTeam.com to get started. That's BethLewisTeam.com, or call 847-274-9745. That's 847-274-9745. Cross Country Mortgage LLC, NMLS 3029, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing opportunity, Illinois residential mortgage licensee. Relationships are at the base of just about everything in life. If those relationships thrive, so does your life and your business. Pruce Coach Leader Academy helps individuals to entire companies learn a coach approach to support positive relationship. PCLA's ICF accredited coach training program transforms and equips individuals and companies with a skill set to support others' growth and development. PCLA. We coach, we train, we mentor. Get started today at PruceCoachLeader.com. That's PREUSS CoachLeader.com.
here with Jill Schacter from the Evanston Public Library, and we are just having a great conversation about the things that make the Evanston Public Library so special. And the library's really pivoted. I mean, 2020 was a huge year for the library and for all of us in general. I mean, dealing with the pandemic, the library opened up the Robert Crown Center branch and closed a couple other branches. And there was a lot of internal looking at ourselves throughout the country. And with the George Floyd murder and Black Lives Matter protests, and trying to figure out how do we come together as a community? How do we right wrongs? And the library, I think, has been a unique aspect of that solution within Evanston. So Jill, tell us a little bit about what the library has done in order to address those issues.
Yeah, so in one way we were, on our way because we had done an equity, diversity, and inclusion assessment in 2017 that we put out in 2018. And so we have been steadily working through some of the recommendations of this equity, diversity, and inclusion assessment. So we have an internal equity, diversity, and inclusion committee that's made up of staff and board members, and they have been leading efforts. We are all going through continuous equity training at the library, all the staff, all year long. So, we're learning things about bias and microaggressions and cultural competence and whiteness, and it's really imbuing the organization. I would say we're taking it very seriously, and things don't change really fast, but they change when you do this kind of training. And we've surveyed the staff and we've asked them, and 90% of them say that they're learning something new through the training, and about 70% say that they're putting these new things they're learning to work in their job. And this is how change happens. I mean, and it starts, there's so much we need to do.
And some of the things you're doing, I mean, how do you outreach to different parts of the community? Do you have staff members that go out and communicate with people, find out what people's needs are?
Yes, we have a growing, I just wanted to say one more thing, which is that one more really important thing is that we also have a racial equity task force, which is primarily made up of people in our community who are people of color, along with a couple of board members and a couple of staff people. And they are also advising us and making us really take a hard look at our budget, at our priorities. So we do have a growing community engagement team, and community engagement staff members are people who focus outside the walls of our libraries, not inside. So, they are really out there doing all kinds of things in the community. Some of them have shifted during the pandemic, but, we have been in low-income senior homes, providing, computers and internet. We have, we go out to Over the Rainbow, which is a place where people live who have physical disabilities. We're regulars there. We have reached out to our faith-based communities. Faith-based communities also had to pivot really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And so our Black churches in particular, we have really reached out to them and provided all kinds of support during the pandemic. We have a specific engagement coordinator for the Latinx community. I talked about some of the work we did in helping people with the CARES Act. That's really growing for us, this engagement, getting out and seeing what people's needs really are. We are about to engage in a strategic planning process, which is really exciting, because I think following on the heels of the pandemic, we're just going to be so ripe for the change that's really needed and the change that's happening within the library. It's really happening. We're diversifying our staff. Libraries are very white spaces, actually, because nationally, just 2 or 3% of librarians are not white people. So our staff is diversifying, and it's really going to, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I think about libraries and throughout my life, it's mostly white people who are the librarians, and it's definitely true. So it is good to have diversity there. By the way, I actually, I didn't mention this last week when I spoke with the Skokie Public Library, but I worked at a library when I was in college, and I would take in the journals and write the different blurbs and give people, the researchers, information for the department that I was working in that library. And you think about just like how many different things the library can provide. So, for one group, it might be, someone who's doing research on learning about science. It might be somebody trying to get a job. It might be a child learning to read. There's so many different groups. And, one group you mentioned, people with special needs. How do you help those groups? How do you help people who are blind or who just have physical disabilities where it may be harder to get to the library?
Yeah, well, we have a Books on Wheels program where we will deliver, materials to people. So that's one way. We have also a reading group specifically for people with cognitive disabilities. And we've actually during the pandemic, they're meeting much more often and actually meeting, I think that meeting virtually, some people really prefer that. So right now, the name of the group is failing me, but yeah, we have a group specifically for people with cognitive disabilities that's really come along. So that's, we also, we have a memory cafe, and we've converted that to the virtual medium. And I think that can be a lot easier for some people. I mean,
what is the memory cafe?
It's programming for people who are on the memory loss spectrum. And so, people come and they get enrichment activities in the arts, or maybe it's singing, or maybe it's show and tell. And we've converted it to virtual, and it's working out. I mean, obviously people need someone that can help them. They need someone who helps them through this, but it is for people with memory loss and their care partners. And so we have really amped up in these last few years, just different kinds of programming, that can meet the needs of just more people than people who can just walk into the library and search the stacks. It really is a lot more than that. I wanted to just also mention that one very key thing that we did this year was we eliminated overdue fines. And there are no longer overdue fines at the library. And, some people, we've received some letters, and, some people think that, we should charge fines to people, but mostly people are very supportive because it is a barrier for some people. It's a barrier to resources, and we don't want that.
Is it a barrier because they have overdue fines and then they don't want to come in because they're going to get literally nickeled and dimed as they come into the library?
Yes. For some people to have to pay $20, that's a $20 they could have used for medication or for,
How do you get people to return the books on time then? If you don't have fines, are there consequences?
We will know more this year. We'll take a look at, if you never return your book, eventually we'll charge you for the replacement cost. Mm-hmm. And also now we have automatic renewals. So if nobody wants the book that you've taken out, it gets automatically renewed. Yeah. So that also helps. If you never return your book, we're going to charge you for it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that anything that we can do to remove barriers for people from getting the education is so important. And I view in many ways the library as an incubator. It could be a business incubator if you have ideas. And a lot of people have actually started new businesses during the pandemic. For instance, I created a company for this show and for this type of work in 2020. And I think that there are people who have different ideas because things have changed, or maybe they lost their jobs or their jobs have changed. And the library is a place where you can come and you can learn and you can network with different people. So do you foresee a lot more engagement in that respect as well for small business owners?
Yeah, we actually have a librarian that's dedicated to small business. And she's there for that particular purpose focusing on our small business owners. We have tremendous digital resources for the small business owner, lots of business information. These are databases that, if you bought them yourself, you'd spend a lot of money on them. So, the other thing is that the library has all of these spaces. I mean, it's different now during the pandemic, but our meeting rooms are always, they're always full of people doing exactly what you're saying, networking, getting work done, making connections. And we've added some rooms, actually. We've added some rooms because the need was so great. We needed to make more space for that.
Well, I think it's so key that you have that. And I've personally used this library for study, for taking classes in order to get my real estate license, for being in meetings for different communities that I'm a part of, and just to read and enhance my knowledge. Learning doesn't stop when school ends. We have to be lifelong learners.
Absolutely. Another thing that we have are all kinds of resources for people to take tests.
And we will talk more about that just after the break, so everyone stick around.
Sounds good.
Reading, writing, and math are a struggle for a lot of students. At BrainLinks, we know those skills are what paves the way to independence and success. Our specialists will help your child develop the habits they need to make sure they thrive not only in class, but out in the world in general. And of course, for everyone's safety, our lessons are done completely online. For more information on our team members and to schedule your initial consultation, visit BrainLinksAcademics.com. That's BrainLinksAcademics.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Here with Jill Schacter from the Evanston Public Library, and we've been having a great conversation about all the different things that the library has going on and how it's pivoted in 2020 and what's coming up for 2021. And we talked a little bit about the show, The Checkout, which is the podcast that the Evanston Public Library puts out, and Jill is the host of. And you've had some really great guests on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the people and what the purpose behind the show is?
Yeah, so the Checkout podcast is a way to introduce the Evanston community to people who are doing interesting things, who either work and or live in Evanston. I sort of think of it as that people are our best resources, and the library is a place to learn about resources, and the people in our city are fantastic resources. And so if people learn about them, you never know what kinds of connections will be made. And it also gives, like your show does, it gives people in our community a voice. And this is a close and connected community. And I think people really appreciate hearing about people they either know already, or people they've never heard of. And
people get excited to hear that. They get excited to, maybe it's somebody who they went to high school with and they haven't heard from them in 20 years. Or there's somebody who, they grew up with and then turned out to be a dance star and then, got into politics, or just different people throughout the community. It's such a wonderful resource that this provides. How did you, do you work on it with anybody, and how did the library come up with this idea?
Yeah, it really just came to me that I would love to do a podcast, and I have the experience and background to do it because I have interviewed all those authors in my past. And I mentioned it to the library director, and her response was so completely receptive and excited that it just kind of went from there. She gave a quick green light to it. I have two producers that help me, Steve Johnson, who grew up here in Evanston and is a communications consultant, and Jim Laskowski, who started his own podcasting network. He's a sub at the Evanston Public Library. He used to work at Evanston, and now he works at Chicago Public Library. So he also helps out. And then I have a work study student, Josh Perry from Northwestern, who helps me a little bit too. Yeah, we've had some really interesting guests on the show. I started off with Pat Effiam, who at the time was the equity, her title, she was in charge of equity for the city of Evanston. So I kind of kicked it off sort of showing where our focus really is. And that's a really interesting episode where she talks about equity, what it means, what it's meant to her in her own life. One of our most listened to episodes is with Dino Robinson, who founded Shorefront Legacy Center, which, Dino, he's amazing. He basically was looking for some history of African Americans on the North Shore, couldn't really find what he was looking for, and basically decided that he would start his own archive, and has created a huge archive of information.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Dino as well, and one of my favorite episodes. I didn't really know much about him before I went into Evanston City Hall, and I saw that there was a whole exhibit about the history of redlining.
Yes.
And talking about how it works specifically in Evanston and throughout Chicago. Definitely hits home to me as a real estate professional.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about that. I'm actually going to be taking a class just to, diversity at home, to be an expert on that, about diversity. And there's so much that people don't realize went into how people have settled throughout the area and how that plays into inequities through generation. Because you talk about generational wealth, and that is a
real estate's the way we do
real
it.
estate. Yeah. And it still exists. Even it's not legal, but it still exists in certain respects, maybe in other industries, maybe how people view things. But I think that what he did with that exhibit and what he does is just so fantastic. And you don't know about it unless it's publicized.
Yes. And then I also talked with Robin Rue Simmons, who of course is our current Fifth Ward alderman, who has done so much to advance the country's first local reparations fund. And, she's focusing on home ownership as a place for the reparations money to go, because she understands how generational wealth is created through real estate.
She's a very interesting person. And I got to hear her at, she spoke to the Rotary group that I'm a part of, and she's doing some fantastic work. There's so many. Do you ever think you'll run out of people to talk to?
Never. I never think I'll run out of people to talk to. One very interesting thing for me was when I spoke with Rebecca Mendoza, who's the first Latina on the District 65 school board. She's worked at so many of our, important not-for-profit institutions in Evanston. She came here at age 5 from Mexico City with her mother. And I was talking to her about being an Evanstonian. And she said, I don't feel like a real Evanstonian. And I was like, what do you mean? You've been here since you were 5. You've worked at all these places. And, and that really hit home to me. She doesn't feel like a real Evanstonian, because she's a Latina. Yeah.
No, I think the key is that we all have to feel like we're at home, and part of that is just being welcoming and learning the stories. And when we know the stories of our neighbor, then we start to really engage with each other. And that's the key. And that's what I love about the library and what your podcast does, and the ability to be able to share that. So where can people learn more about the library, and also where can they listen to your podcast to check out?
Yeah, so, you can go to epl.org. You can call us at 448-8630 anytime. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The podcast is at epl.org/the checkout, or you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, that is great. I think everyone should take advantage of that. And, I really can't wait to see what the library puts on. And when you go to those websites, make sure to sign up for the newsletters, because there is some great information that you're putting out there on a regular basis that I think is so important for the community to read.
Yes, you should definitely sign up for the newsletter. We have about 37,000 people who get it, but we need more.
Yes, yeah, we need everyone on there. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show today. And I'm so glad that I've gotten to interview you and to feature also the Skokie Public Library, because the libraries are the place that people should go to so we can learn, pivot, and adapt to this new world that we're a part of. So important. And if you want to listen to any of the previous episodes that I've had on, go to Schacter-Evanston.com. And next week, I'm going to be featuring the Evanston Community Foundation, which is an incredibly important organization here in Evanston and really does a lot of great work throughout the community. So I want to thank all my guests, all my sponsors, and everyone for listening today to the show. And, Jill, thank you so much for your time today. Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of Inside the Skev. To listen live, tune in Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. to WCGO. That's 95.9 FM, 1590 AM, WCGOradio.com, or you can go to Facebook Live on WCGO's page or Inside the Skev. If you want to learn more about this great neighborhood or what I do, go to Skevinston.com. And I want to thank every supporter of the show and all my listeners. Thanks so much.